Yeah. Okay. Hi everyone. I am. I have a deck and it's got lots of stuff in it, and we'll go through it. But also, I am also just I might like veer off and just start getting more conversational.
That's cool.
Left to right. Am I in control of this, or do I have to say next slide?
I have to say next slide.
Okay. So I will confess that I don't know a great deal about what the typical trajectory is, or if there is even one for your children. There may be a great amount of variation, and so both because of the specificity that I don't know, and also because of the work that I do with families of children with serious medical conditions, many of which are rare diseases. What I'm talking about is sort of at a macro scale about the lived experience of families caring for children living with serious medical conditions, some of which are life-limiting, like my daughter who had infantile Tay-Sachs, which is always fatal in early childhood, some of which are life-threatening because the treatments and therapies the medical interventions may be a matter of like you are trach invented and you need that to stay alive. And some may just be life-shortening. The children may not live into adulthood, and some may just be complex chronic and with an uncertain prognosis. But there are packages of issues that we as parents and caregivers experience along the psychosocial and emotional landscape that comes with parenting, the responsibilities of parenting these children for whom they are the love of our lives, and it is our job to protect. And yet there are some things that we cannot control. And so how do we manage that and how do we give ourselves grace, and how do we make peace with all of that? Okay, am I making a thumping sound? Why am I making a thumping sound?
It's just when you project to the microphone,
Oh,
sometimes it's just like
okay.
it's like peas and stuff like that.
Like if they're a small child I don't see any small children pumping a box. Okay, so next slide, please. Again, I'm here first and foremost in my capacity as a parent who has her own lived experience with a very rare disease. That's my daughter, Cameron, who was diagnosed at 6 months of age with infantile Tay-Sachs. The only reason she was diagnosed so early, because most children don't get diagnosed that early with infantile Tay-Sachs, is because her first cousin, Hayden, who is my husband's identical twin, who married my roommate from college's son. So my husband's an identical twin. Tim, my husband's Charlie. Tim, identical twin, married my roommate from college, Allison. And all four of us, unbeknownst to us, were carriers of the Tay-Sachs mutation. Children have a 1 in 4 chance of inheriting the bad gene from both parents. I'm the only one in the group, turns out, that has a mutation that had ever been seen before. I carry the Ashkenazi mutation. My paternal grandmother is of Ashkenazi descent. Both my husband and his twin have a spontaneous mutation that had never been seen before, and my sister-in-law, Allison, had a mutation that had never been seen before. So what happened to us was very, very, very statistically improbable. But as we know, genetics, nothing is impossible, and that's what happened to us. And so we had Hayden was diagnosed at 18 months. My daughter Cameron was diagnosed at 6 months. We went through that together, these two couples with their 2 children and the grandparents and the aunts and uncles. And it was an extraordinary experience, as you might imagine. Very, very sad and difficult, but also very beautiful because we did it together and we were not alone. And that was part of the seed of Courageous Parents Network. Anyway, that's my daughter Cameron at 6 months, when we had just learned she was going to die in early childhood. So you can sort of imagine this does not look like a baby who that there's anything wrong with. That's me looking at her a month after, and you could see the sorrow in my face. This picture really haunts me still. And then that is my family on Cameron's second birthday. It's my husband Charlie, me, our older daughter Taylor, who was 4 when her sister turned 2, and our new baby Eliza. You can test in utero for infantile Tay-Sachs, and we did prenatal testing, and she was not affected. And that's Cameron on her second birthday. Unbeknownst to us, in that picture, Cameron had pneumonia, and it was her 4th pneumonia, and we knew from the progression of the disease that there would come a time when we would not treat a pneumonia. We had elected not to give Cameron a feeding tube because the neurological devastation of Tay-Sachs is such that no matter what you do, the children become completely, they lose all of their fine and gross, and they become completely impaired in all ways. And there's nothing to be done about that. And that is still true, unfortunately, despite all of the efforts with research, which relates to the blood-brain barrier. Anyway, the point was we had elected not to give her a feeding tube, which meant that aspiration pneumonias were part of her journey. And we understood in our work with our palliative care minded primary care pediatrician that there would come a time when we would not treat her last pneumonia because we would decide that her quality of life was no longer acceptable for her to us and our understanding of what we thought our little girl would want. So the next day after her birthday, when we found out that she did have pneumonia, we elected not to treat it. And she died 5 days later. So, and you know, the thing about this is I didn't see how sick she was. I mean, I knew she wasn't probably going to see her 3rd birthday, but I just didn't see how sick she was. And that was good that I didn't see how sick she was. Okay, next slide, please. So in my work at Courageous Parents Network, which I started 11 years ago, and I run it with 7 other amazing people. So it's not just me at all. I have come to interview and work with hundreds of parents caring for children living with serious medical conditions and medical complexity, many of which are rare diseases. And this is just a snapshot of some of these families and their children. The diseases span the spectrums: lysosomal storage diseases, brain tumors, cancers, mitochondrial diseases, leukodystrophies, problems of the central nervous system, a lot. And in our work, we've come to work with a lot of complex care, palliative care, neuropulmonology clinicians, and that's been a gift as well. But first and foremost has been meeting families. Next slide, please. So as part of this work, when I was starting Courageous Parents Network, it's a nonprofit, so I was raising money, and I was talking to some finance guy. And he said, well, how do you know that what you're looking to do is going to have any impact on families? Because when I started Courageous Parents Network, my mission was to empower and equip parents and others caring for children living with serious medical conditions. Because I said, if you do that, it can make a significant difference in how they feel, and that they're feeling more equipped and more confident and less isolated, and that can improve the journey, and it can minimize regret and maximize healing. And he said, well, how do you know that? And I said, well, I have my own lived experience because we had no regret, and our grief after our daughter died was not complicated. It was what I call clean pain. And he said, well, can you go find some research? I was like, oh my gosh. And there's not a lot of research about the impact that support can have on a parent's well-being and a sense of feeling equipped to do this very difficult journey. Except I did find that work, and this was in 2014. I did find the work of Dr. Pamela Hines. She's a nurse and a PhD who does a lot of work on working with families of children living with serious conditions. She began her work when she was at St. Jude, and she and another doctor, Justin Baker, were talking to children about their experience. And the children said, well, why are you just talking to us? You should also talk to our parents. So she started talking to parents, and the children and the parents started using this language. We're using this language of, well, I feel like to be a good parent, I need to do this. I want to be a good parent, I need to do that. How can I need help being a good parent? And so she found this term incredibly interesting, and she dug deeper. There's no such thing as the alternative. This was parent derived. It's not clinician derived. It's originates in parents. And there's no such thing as it's not like there's a bad parent. It's that parents want to be good parents. Now, all of you in this room are either parents of neurotypical children, children with difficulty, both, or you are the children of parents. And almost always parents want to do a really good job by their children. They want to be the best parent they can possibly be for their child. So, but the stakes are really, really, really high when you're making intense decisions. When you're parenting a neurotypical children, you're trying to give them healthy food, you're trying to make good choices about where they go to school, blah, blah, blah. But when you're making children decisions about who your child's doctor should be, what medical interventions, what therapies, what trials, things like that, the stakes feel even higher. And it is also the case that, and this was the finding that really struck me, was that when parents of children who have died from cancer reported that their sense of having been a good parent at the end of their child's life helped them to emotionally survive their experience and their loss. And that really resonated with me because I believed that if you support parents during their child's journey, whether they're going to have a long life for as long as possible or a shortened life, you will minimize parental regret and maximize healing. And this job is hard enough without parents wrestling with the fear of regret. And so what can be done about that? So that is something the Courageous Parents Network really sets out to do, is to equip parents to feel empowered as decision makers, advocate for their child, confident and equipped with language to feel like they're being the best parents possible. Next slide, please. So here are some things that emerged from the research. None of this will be surprising to you, but it's at least worth noting that there's evidence for that this is the norm for what parents want to feel. I hope I'm doing right by my child, being there for my child, being a good advocate, not allowing suffering, and making my child healthy. And for those of you who are parents right now actively caring for your kids, I would think that this would all resonate with you. Next slide, please. So here are, when we went out to the CPN parent community and asked them to talk about, it shouldn't, okay, there's an auto advancer that shouldn't be there. These are some themes that came up with them about things they were thinking about. And they fell into camps of goals of care, secondary loss, baseline resiliency, palliative care, what does a good day look like, anticipatory grief, hospice, centering the good, shared decision-making, ambiguous grief, and anticipatory regret. So these are thematically some issues that families navigate and negotiate. Next slide, please. What gets in the way of our ability to feel like we're being the best parents we can be and to be fully equipped? Some of those items are, next slide, these are sort of bubble thoughts. The parents' worries. Here are some parents' worries. Are we making enough memories? If you die, will I forget you? I see you losing skills and I'm afraid. Does your medical team see you as I do? Am I doing a good job advocating for you? Where did all my friends go? What about all the things we were meant to do together? What if I let you down? Should I be with you all the time or should I go to work? I have no control over what is happening to you. And do you know how much I love you and how can I know that you know? I just want to pause. Anybody, is this evoking anything? You don't have to speak, but I'm just trying to engage because number one, you're far away. Number two, I don't feel like I'm just talking at you. I mean, I am just talking at you, but I want to know if this is landing in some fashion. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so here are some things that we at Courageous Parents Network and others feel can help you center your good. Naming to tame, it can help to name things and acknowledge your fears and worries. We believe very strongly that it is helpful to name the things that scare you and that you're worried about and to lean into them and to ask for help because there are people who will help you. But they can't help you if they don't know what you're worried about. Palliative care, which I'm going to talk about a little bit and demystify any of you who think that palliative care is for end of life or hospice. The power of community, of course, as evidenced by your choice to come here, and seeking professional support, which can manifest in therapy, obviously all the occupational therapies. I'm a big believer in counseling. My husband and I worked with a grief counselor all the way through from diagnosis onwards. Yes, next slide, please. So, palliative care is what Courageous Parents Network does not advocate for any particular approach to decision making or parenting. The only thing that we actively advocate for unabashedly and passionately is the involvement of palliative care as part of your child's care team. Because palliative care helps you feel like you are being the very best parent you can possibly be to your child and to your other children. So what is palliative care? Next slide, please. All right. Why palliative care is not hospice care. Palliative care is not something whereas you can have a palliative care clinician or palliative minded clinician on your child's team while actively pursuing treatments, cures, all of that. It is not end of life directed. It is not hospice. It helps you balance action and acceptance, articulate your particular goals for your child and family, as well as what you want for them, your values, your beliefs, your hopes. It facilitates your agency as parents and also your child's agency if they are in a position to make decisions for themselves. Palliative care centers the agency of the patient or the patient's proxy, in typically the parent. And it really, really recognizes that there's a lot of uncertainty and it helps you be as intentional as possible in the face of that. Palliative care is the antidote to feeling like you are being a pinball in a medical system that is well-intentioned, but maybe make you feel disempowering. It is about the whole child and the whole family. It is about living as well as possible for as long as possible. Next slide, please. It consists of if you are in a place where there's a palliative care team in the hospital where your child's being seen or in an outpatient clinic, it involves typically at the more well outfitted hospitals, there's an interdisciplinary team that includes a doctor, an RN, nurse practitioner, social worker. You can have also palliative care in primary care. My daughter's doctor was a pediatrician who was not trained in palliative care, but he had a palliative care mindset. And increasingly now, palliative care training is being offered and people are receiving the training, even though they're not getting fellowships or becoming subspecialized in palliative care, because it is a way of thinking, it is a way of supporting, it is a way of traveling alongside a patient and any patient families. It can be integrated at diagnosis, which happened with us because it was the diagnosis that most certainly required palliative support, or it can be delivered later as things become more complicated. And as your needs increase and you need help with communication across the care team, you need help thinking about what matters most to you, you need help with decision-making around a particular intervention, a palliative-minded specialist or a palliative-minded subspecialist, a palliative-minded clinician or palliative care subspecialist can help you with that. It helps you cope, and it prevents the perception of transition in care or abandonment. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so now we're switching. So I'm a passionate advocate that for asking for palliative care, if you feel like decision making is getting really hard, or if there's been a shift in your child's health and you feel like things are getting more complicated, you can ask for a palliative care consult to see. And again, it's an extra layer of support. It is not in lieu of anything. It's a big and. And if you happen to hear from your child's physician or team, you don't need palliative care, your child's not at end of life, you can say, because there are still some misperceptions that that's what it means, you can say, I know, I'm not asking for that. I'm asking because I want help with communication and another person to listen to me and talk to me about what my goals and worries and hopes are. Because sometimes the most incredible specialists are so specifically focused on their piece of the puzzle, they, for better and mostly for better and sometimes for worse, aren't quite able to see the big picture. And palliative care is about the big picture. If I do spinal fusion surgery for my child, what impact will it have on their ability to go to school? What impact will it have on our transportation? What impact will that have on our family? Can somebody please help me think about the big picture? And that's what palliative care is trained to do. Okay, switching. We make decisions in two places. In our hearts, that's the mom, dad part, and in our heads, that's the protector part. Okay, so, or the advocate part. Next slide, please. I feel that can be helpful to name fear of regret and fear of decisional regret, because we as parents feel so much pressure, rightly so, to make good decisions on behalf of our children, especially our very dependent children. And when you're parenting a medically complex child, decision making is a big part of the game. Little decisions, big decisions. So this is a little foray into what the research says about decision regret. What is it? This is not mine. This is borrowed from quite a few other sources. If I were being really proper, I would source it all down here. I did not do that. This is not mine. This is the body research of people who specialize in decision regret. Okay, what is it? It is negative emotions or dissatisfaction that one feels after making a decision. We have all experienced decision regret. It is when your expectations are not met with, or reality does not meet your expectations. It can be experienced in many aspects of life, your personal life, your professional life, and with medical decisions. Next slide, please. You can have, typically there is an emotional response, which can involve feelings of sadness, disappointment, guilt, or frustration. You are comparing what is happening to alternatives, often driven by the belief that a different choice would have led to a more favorable outcome. And then you're also evaluating the outcome, where you are focusing on the consequences of the decision rather than the decision-making process itself. And that's where it gets sticky, right? Because we are always trying to make the best decision possible. And if you focus on the decision-making process, it can relieve you of any guilt or regret that you might have when the outcome doesn't turn out the way you hoped it would. Because a focus on outcome, when you don't have a crystal ball and cannot predict what is going to happen. Even your child's medical team cannot say for certain what will happen. I mean, sometimes there are obvious examples, but that's when, if it's an obvious decision, you're not worried about a fear of regret. You know, your child breaks their arm, you put them in a cast. That's not a real decision. But there are a lot of the things that do feel like it could go either way, and there's a burden of decision making. And if you focus on what ended up happening instead of the process that went into the making of the decision, you can fall into regret. But if you focus on the loving process of gathering information and doing the best you can, and the fact that you did the best you could with the information you had, as opposed to focusing on the outcome if it's disappointing, you are doing yourself a huge, huge favor. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so now we're focusing specific on medical decisions. As I just mentioned, often the decisional burden is around treatment options where you're having to choose between multiple interventions or treatments. Health behaviors, should my child be on a ketogenic diet? Should my child be, gluten-free? Blah, 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 blah. There's a lot to consider there. And here are the factors that affect decision regret. How much information did you have available to you when you were weighing your options? How uncertain are the outcomes as they are being presented to you? This could be the outcome, or this could be the outcome, or this could be the outcome, or we don't actually know what the outcome might be. What matters most to you? What are your values and your goals? And what sort of pressure or what's in the zeitgeist of the community that you are operating in? That can be the community of you and your partner or your spouse. That can be in your family. You may have well-intentioned family members, such as parents or in-laws or aunts or uncles or cousins, who are telling you what they think you should do. Well-intentioned, very unhelpful. Or you may be living in a community where they prioritize the value as X, and X just doesn't feel right to you, or you feel pressure to do X, and that can be one of the influences too. Next slide, please. So you are experiencing decisional regret when the psychological impact of that regret is persistent. It can lead to stress and anxiety, decreased life satisfaction, and future indecisiveness or avoidance of decision-making entirely. So, in other words, decisional regret is not your friend, because if it persists, it can complicate things that follow. So that is why we think it's helpful to understand what it is, so you can watch for it, give yourself grace, and do things to avoid it. Next slide, please. We at Courageous Parents Network, we're moving into Courageous Parents Network, believe that if you empower and equip families with information about how to advocate for your child, how to think about decision making, not the decision itself, but parental agency, give them permission to say yes to things, permission to say no to things, permission to ask questions, permission to give themselves grace, encouragement to ask for palliative care, that you are equipping parents with the tools they need to minimize decision regret. Next slide, please. We are a 24/7 digital platform. Our mission is to empower, equip, educate parents caring for children living with serious medical conditions. My background is in television and video production, as well as distance learning. I worked for a distance learning company. I worked for ABC. I worked for PBS. I've interviewed a lot of families in my life. I put it all together, built a team of amazing people, and we now feature over 6,000 short videos we've interviewed like 100 and something people. We cut up the interviews and organized all of that content from clinicians and from parents, experienced parents who've traveled the road, into topic areas across this broad spectrum of issues that will, I think, to some or large extent, resonate with all parents in this room. These are the issues that parents encounter. And if you go on to CPN and go looking around, you will find experienced parents who've traveled this road ahead of you and clinicians who support families talking about all of these things. Our content on siblings is a very good entry point, because when your child is affected and their sibling, their life is more complicated, it has an impact on the siblings. We have so much information on how to support the siblings and how parents think about it, and materials to help with that. Transition to an adulthood is also something that we offer. So for children who age out of the pediatric world, where there is a lot of beautiful support, but now suddenly you've aged out and you're in the adult world, you have to change your child's medical team. Or rather, they might have to change their own team. That can be very scary. These have been people who have worked with them since diagnosis, and now you have to go find adult physicians who don't necessarily understand the disease, or what matters to or who your child is, and or what matters to you. Palliative care, of course, we have a whole section on that. And then our section on spirituality, I'm really proud of that. Parents talking about why me, why my child, where do I go to find support? Marriage, big deal. We feature divorced parents, happily married parents, parents who have struggled like hell through this. Counselors talking about how people respond differently and supports for helping people talk to each other. And then for those parents who are anticipating their child's end of life and who become bereaved, we have a ton of content as well. Although our mission is to support everybody before, not after. We just happen to have a lot of stuff that does help the parents in the after. Okay, next slide, please. These are just some screen grabs of some of the families we've interviewed and some of the clinicians. Families, their kids across all diagnoses, when we interview them, their children are 14 years old, 4 years old, 22 years old, some newly diagnosed, and some of them are bereaved when we interview them. And so we do interview them about their experience following the death of their child. And then the clinicians that we interview, all of whom are palliative minded, but not all of whom are palliative care, we have a neonatologist, a medical home doctor, a palliative care doctor, a licensed clinical social worker, a genetic counselor, a pediatric neurologist, multiple complex care doctors, social workers, nurse practitioners, child life specialists, genetic counselors. Should we have another child? That's a big question. This child has a genetic condition. Should we have another child? How do we think about that? Pregnancy after child loss, we also have that. Your child has died, and are you going to do it again? And what's that going to bring up? And so much of our content is driven by parents who come to us and say, this is something we're wrestling. Do you have anything on that? And then we were like, no, we don't. We'll go out and we'll produce content. Or clinicians who come to us and say, we're working with a family, or we've got multiple families struggling with X. Do you have anything? And we'll responsibly develop that. Next slide, please. Okay, there's a video library. It's all available 24/7. A blog, which is all of our blogs are authored either by parents or clinicians. Next slide, please. But we edit and curate everything. This is I think I'm just going to show one video in the interest of time. So if we can just press play.
Just one.
And while there is a huge letdown and it can be demoralizing to have that realization, there's also a freeing and a sense of maybe it's not so critical that we push everything, and maybe we are able to set a little bit less stressful priorities. I remember when Katie was little and, EI would come and the OT would work with her and say, now I want you to do just these two things, this and this, and tell me how it goes next week. And I go, oh, okay, and the teacher would come and say, make sure you try doing this during feeding. Oh, okay. And then who else? Speech or somebody would say, and give another little homework. And each one was very reasonable. But by the end of the week, I had 12 things I needed to try, in addition to giving her 14 medications 4 times a day and remembering the timing of which one goes where. And it's like, it became absolutely overwhelming. And yet I felt like I had to do every one of those things to be a good parent. And eventually you realize you just actually can't. I mean, maybe some women and families can, but I couldn't. And so I had to kind of start taking that information in, not disregarding it, but using it to figure out what my priorities are for Katie and what, my partner's priorities were for Katie, and put the most attention to those. Even if that meant that some days I had to say, we didn't try that this week, or no, I didn't get to that.
Did that resonate with you?
Way too well.
Yeah. No one can do everything. And you certainly can't do everything when the list is that long. And it can be very helpful and liberating to acknowledge that you can't do everything, and that is okay. And that is June, mother of Katie, saying that she had to learn how to do that. And it takes time to get to that place, and you learn what are the most important things to get to, and what are the things you can let go of, and to not feel guilty or ashamed when you report out that you couldn't get to that. In fact, ideally, with the voice that you have developed as your child's advocate, saying to the member of the team, I can't get to that this week because it's just too much, and I need you to understand that that's too much. Either just accept it, or can you help me with what is the most important thing you would have us do? And what are the things that we can shed, because I can't get to all of that. Next slide, please. I think we're gonna skip that one. And we're gonna, it's the next slide. This. Oh, okay. So we have downloadable guides in English and Spanish. The guides have been co-authored by clinicians and parents. Guides on spirituality, strengthening your partnership, a framework for shared decision-making with your child's clinicians. That one's particularly helpful. Next slide, please. These are all available on Courageous Parents Network. We have these little, top 10 things to know about X, Y, and Z, and one of them is 7 things to understand about regret, for example. Next slide, please. We also host a monthly gathering. This is the one live thing we do every month on a topic that is of interest to families. A lot of times clinicians attend. We always have a psychoeducation piece, often delivered by a clinician who's done research in this area, to situate your experience in a larger body of evidence. to help parents see that they are not alone and that this is part of the natural effed up situation that they are in. So often it is a clinician who presents the psychoeducation piece, and then there are experienced parents who also speak to the issue. All are welcome. The one we had just this past in May was on navigating the stages of financial planning. That was a particularly practical one. And the one we have coming up this month is on insights into medical decision making. That's one you might be interested in. The host of that one is her name is Gabrielle Conacher. She is a parent advocate who started a parent patient group called DEEP, which aggregates families, parents, children affected by severe epilepsies. So Gabrielle is hosting that one on medical decision making. You just register, it's all free. You just sign in and there you are, and you're online with anywhere from 20 to 100 people who are listening and then invited to talk and ask questions. Next slide, please. The last thing I'm going to show you is a digital resource we have called NeuroJourney. NeuroJourney is something we developed over the course of the past few years and launched over a year ago. It is specifically for families of children with severe neurological conditions or impairment that impact the central nervous system. When the brain is impacted and compromised, all the systems in the body are ultimately compromised because the central nervous system controls everything, hence its name is so central. And when the central nervous system is impaired, it affects gastroendocrinology, pulmonology, neurology, which impacts nutrition. It also has an impact on the psychosocial and emotional experience that the families have. So we created NeuroJourney to very specifically explore the medical issues and provide anticipatory guidance to parents of children who have a severe neurological condition. Its goal is to improve parental agency with decision-making, to empower parents when they're in conversation with their child's clinicians, to empower clinicians when they are in conversation with parents. Puts the entire child in one place, and it validates the concerns of the family. Next slide, please.
It's a conference that I'm listening to.
This is a mashup of the screen, of the site. We call it NeuroJourney because we don't need to watch that. If you go back, it'll probably auto advance. We situate it along the journey from diagnosis onwards, and so phase one is. Oh, actually, what time is it?
It's about 9:30.
Okay, maybe we will watch this video and then I'll be done. So can we just watch? If you go to the next one. Okay, yeah, there we go. It plays.
Welcome to NeuroJourney. This educational resource and reference tool is designed for families and clinicians navigating the needs of a child who has a severe neurological impairment, sometimes called SNI. SNI is a phrase used in the medical community to describe a group of conditions or disorders that affect the brain and central nervous system. Signals from the brain control all of the systems in the body. They tell our lungs to breathe, our bowels to move, and our hearts to beat. Signals from the brain to the spinal cord drive our movement. So when the brain is impaired, all bodily systems are affected. There can be physical discomfort, problems with movement and thinking skills, and other medical complications as the condition progresses. Categories of SNI include metabolic neurodegenerative disorders, genetic conditions and syndromes, developmental epileptic encephalopathy and seizure disorders, and brain malformations, infections, and injuries. Every child is different, and the issues that may arise during an SNI journey may be different. Challenges might appear over an expected time frame or one that's unpredictable. For example, some children with SNI are never able to walk, while others walk and then lose that ability over time. Some can feed themselves for a period, and some will always require support. Most experience pain, and some become frustrated and irritable. Some are verbal, and others communicate in unique nonverbal ways. This tool is designed to help you understand what may be happening to your child and to anticipate things that may arise now and in the future. It presents the medical topics you're likely to encounter, and you'll also find perspectives on the emotional and social topics that are part of providing loving care for your child. NeuroJourney uses 4 phases of full life to help you understand the challenges you might face, anticipate the conversations you may have, and prepare for the decisions you may need to make as you.
And then I think we're at the end. We can go, this just gives you the medical map, NeuroJourney. Next slide, please. Gets into specifics of all sorts of things, including the GI, what your child may experience. Next slide, please. Psychosocial. And finally, we have an app. If you're an app person and you like to look at things, I mean, Courageous Parents Network is mobile responsive. NeuroJourney is mobile responsive, but you can also download our app. And next slide, please. And this is, I always end on this slide. Well, the last slide actually is my email. But, oops, okay. This, shortly after my daughter died, a good friend came over and gave us this poem by Raymond Carver called Late Fragment. And it summed it up. I mean, I burst into tears with gratitude because it summed up everything I had wanted for my daughter, which is that she should feel beloved. Did she feel beloved on this earth? And I felt that my husband and I had done that one really, really, really well. And that made all the difference. And that has made all the difference in the 24 years that have followed. And last slide. Here's some takeaways. Oops. There's my email. Just, it helps. Identify what matters most to you for your child and family. What will help you feel like you're being the best parent for your child. Ask your child's clinicians to help you anticipate what may lie ahead and consider decisions you may encounter and the information you will need to consider what feels right for your child and family. And if you do the best you can with the information and resources and energy available to you, you are unlikely to have any regrets. Ask yourself, what can you let go of, and give yourself grace to let go of some of it because you cannot do everything. Consider whether adding palliative care to your child's team will help center what matters most to you. And always, Courageous Parents Network and NeuroJourney are available for guidance and information to help you see that you are not alone. Thank you very much. And here's my email. I have these little cards, which one is Courageous Parents Network and one is NeuroJourney. If you think you want to remember it, which I hope you do, take a card and pass it or pass the packs around. And then whatever is left, put them back.